With week 1 in the books, let's take a look at 4 players that I'm looking to trade for in my fantasy leagues right now. Starting first with Josh Jacobs, the new Packers running back who made his green and white debut on Friday night in Brazil and had a pretty up and down game from start to finish, but I saw enough to make me want to buy in if you weren't able to draft him. The important sign that we saw was that Josh Jacobs was the workhorse. He saw 16 rush attempts, another 3 targets for 19 total opportunities compared to just 7 opportunities for backup Emmanuel Wilson. And while it took some time to get going in game, Jacobs did end up breaking 100 total yards on those 19 opportunities for a total of 12.4 PPR fantasy points. And I know that doesn't sound super amazing, but for a game where he doesn't find the end zone, there's really not much more that we could ask from our running backs than 100 yards, a few receptions, and a lot of volume. Especially when it's week 1, Jacobs barely played at all during the preseason. He played like 5 snaps a month ago. It was against the Philadelphia Eagles, whose strength is in their run defense as a top 12 unit last year. They had to travel to Brazil, the farthest that any team has had to travel for an NFL game ever. And if you watched the game, the field was absolutely horrendous. I'm honestly surprised that no one tore an ACL. So despite all of that, Jacobs came out with a workhorse role, and because he didn't score, his fantasy numbers weren't all that spectacular. So whoever has him in your league might just be overlooking this performance. And if that wasn't enough, Jordan Love is expected to miss 3 to 6 weeks with the knee injury that he suffered at the end of the game. And Malik Willis is not a fantastic quarterback. So the offense might flow even more through Josh Jacobs over the next couple of weeks with Jordan Love out. More rush attempts, more dump off passes, possibly more red zone usage if they get in the red zone. All of that could flow in Josh Jacobs' direction as a way to get the ball out of Malik Willis's hands. The Packers' next 4 opponents are the Colts at home this week, a defense that just got demolished by Joe Mixon for nearly 100 total yards and a touchdown. The Titans, who did well against DeAndre Swift, but hopefully the Packers' offense is better than the Bears' offense this past week. The Vikings, who are an average run defense, and then the Rams, who just got beat down by the Lions for 130 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, because Aaron Donald isn't there completely wrecking everything going up the middle anymore. And then when Jordan Love comes back, they get more good matchups and potential high-scoring games against Arizona, Houston, Jacksonville, and Detroit. It is just a perfect opportunity to buy low on a fantasy RB1 in Josh Jacobs right now. But before we move on, I wanted to let y'all know to head over to 4for4.com and sign up for a subscription today to gain access to the industry's best weekly rankings from award-winning ranker for accuracy John Paulson. Plus, you get access to our start-sit tool, trade calculator, articles, and there are additional packages for DFS and betting content too. Make sure to use the code YouTube at checkout to receive 25% off your annual subscription today. But speaking of buying low on RB1s, another workhorse who delivered well on Sunday was James Conner in the near upset win over the Buffalo Bills. Now, Conner did find the end zone this week, unlike Josh Jacobs, but the rest of his numbers really weren't all that gaudy. 50 rushing yards on 16 carries, plus another 33 yards on 3 receptions for a final PPR performance of 17.3 points. Now, the argument for Conner is very similar to Josh Jacobs. He had a massive workhorse role with 20 opportunities compared to just 4 opportunities for backup Trey Benson. This is James Conner's backfield. There should be no question about that whatsoever. And the best part about Conner's performance on Sunday was that he accounted for 8 touches on their opening drive alone, including 10 of the Cardinals' first 15 plays. They only turned away from Conner at the end of the game because they had to throw to keep up with Buffalo, but he was still getting carries and red zone touches all the way through the third quarter, and that is exactly why I want to be buying into James Conner right now. The Cardinals' next 3 games are all at home against the aforementioned LA Rams, who just got beat down by Detroit on the ground. Then they play the Detroit Lions, who gave up a similar stat line as Conner this week to Kyren Williams, but that will be a tough game. And then the Washington Commanders, who nearly gave up 100 rushing yards to Rashad White and Bucky Irving, plus another 90 receiving yards to the duo. Again, all 3 of these matchups are at home. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but say you make the fantasy playoffs with James Conner, then you're going to get matchups against the New England Patriots, Carolina Panthers, and the LA Rams again in weeks 15 through 17, which just sounds so juicy. So Conner makes the perfect RB2 or even flex play right now in your starting lineup that is very acquirable off a modest performance and could be instrumental in helping you win a fantasy championship this year. Moving to the wide receiver position, I thought his week 1 performance was to be expected after holding out all summer, but just in case, if not, throw out some offers for Brandon Aiyuk, who only played 60% of snaps as expected based on Shanahan's comments over the weekend. He saw 5 targets, which was tied for second on the team, only caught 2 of them for 28 yards, so only 4.8 PPR points, but his fantasy stat line would have looked way better had he actually caught that touchdown pass in the back of the end zone.
Man to man, Jennings. Oh, he got what a throw.
Aiyuk, he's a little rusty, Pate. You know, he's missed all training camp.
Hey, get signed, get in training camp. There's a reason for training camp. You need it. We need the reps.
But all of that is temporary. He's going to play more than 60% of snaps every week moving forward. He's going to see more than 5 targets in basically every game the rest of the year, like he did in 75% of his games last year. And he's going to shake off the rust of not practicing all summer and return to being a high-end fantasy wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 weekly upside, just like he was last year, just like he was the year before that. If the manager in your league who has Brandon Aiyuk is at all on the fence about Monday night's performance, or is just one to overreact to week 1 in general, then try to flip a Jameson Williams for Brandon Aiyuk, Stephon Diggs for Brandon Aiyuk, Zay Flowers for Brandon Aiyuk. Add something to Khalil Shakir or Rashid Shaheed and just go get a guy that you know is going to be great for fantasy football the rest of the year at somewhat of a discount. And finally, if you've watched my content on this channel at all over the past month, then you know that I'm a huge fan of Nico Collins, and I'm once again here to spread the propaganda. A team-high 8 targets, 6 receptions, 117 yards, 17.7 PPR points, and that's without scoring a touchdown. And that's the reason that I think Nico could be acquirable this week. Not as any sort of buy low player like the other 3 guys I just highlighted. I am willing to pay full 3rd round draft season ADP price for Nico Collins right now because I saw everything that I needed to see. I saw a team wide receiver 1 with the full trust of his young elite quarterback. I saw a deep ball 50 yards downfield that he goes up and wins the 50-50 ball. I saw usage over the middle on short to intermediate routes. I saw a game-clinching 1st down catch on 3rd and long to ice the game. The only thing that Nico Collins didn't do this week, like I mentioned, was find the end zone. Those went to Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, but that is completely fine by me because he checked every single other box, and touchdowns will come with all of that volume and for the type of receiver that Nico Collins is. Honestly, him not scoring and people seeing Stephon Diggs put up 21 fantasy points might create a mini discount for Nico Collins, and if that's the case, then I'm buying even more. Go give them Chris Olave or Devontae Adams or Malik Neighbors. Give them Jaden Reed or Stephon Diggs. Just go buy Nico Collins now before he has a massive 25 or 30 plus point game in the coming weeks against Chicago, Minnesota, Jacksonville, or the New England Patriots. The schedule is juicy, the talent is there, the opportunity is there. Just go buy Nico Collins.